Is he saying anything is wrong about the Bible? Not at all. He's saying the problem here is the church, not the Bible, the church. Now this is important because when does the Bible itself start to become challenged? When does the Bible, the words in the Bible themselves, start to become challenged? Exploration in what way? The world isn't flat. Okay, when does it even become more challenged? Scientific revolution. Do you see the story? Okay, it starts in 1500, because Martin Luther is 1520, 1522 I think is the exact date. And it keeps going until Galileo in 1630, 100 years later, and then Newton, 1660. So the whole time it starts with the Renaissance, and little by little, first the church, and then the Bible itself start to decline, go down in authority. And human independent reasoning, logic, what we see. Luther saw these things with his eyes, and he said that is wrong. I don't care if the Pope says it's okay, it's wrong. And so that starts the Reformation. Okay. Because of indulgences in simony, he wrote the 95 Theses. Theses is thesis statements. Simony is bad. I want to argue that in an essay, basically. Simony is corruption. That's my thesis sentence. Luther had 95 of those that he posted on a church door. Okay, what did the church... Okay, now, how did the church react? Okay. You have this? You can hit pause, rewind, and get it. Oh, do you have this? Because you can't. Oh yeah, you can. You can go home to this. Okay. Do you know how embarrassing it is to see yourself? When you realize your eyebrows are really thick and your eyes are really weird? Okay, so, what did the church do? What is excommunication?
Punishment from the church.
Punishment from the church. What does it mean, though?
You're
You're kicked out of the church. And if you are not a member of the Catholic Church, Catholic means universal. It's the only church, according to church teachings. If you're not a member of God's house, of God's Catholic Church, then what happens to you when you die?
You go to hell.
You go to hell. And who has the keys to heaven? The Pope. So the Pope excommunicates Luther. That's a very scary thing. And does Luther say, okay, I'm scared, so I'll take it back if you let me back in? He says, I cannot, basically he says, my conscience tells me that this is wrong. I cannot step back. I have to stand. I have to stand up against this. And so, to shorten the story of Luther, well, no. So the Pope excommunicates him. That doesn't work. So what's the next thing that happens? Luther keeps on arguing against the church. So what's the next thing that the church does? Huh? Okay, but first, the Council of Trent. Luther is a threat. Luther is a problem. He is telling people to stop supporting the church. So what is the church going to do?
The church ordered the cities not to provide any food or other things for Martin Luther.
Okay, it told the cities. It sends the Inquisition. The Inquisition. Which is the church, basically the church police force. It's hard to define. But it would be religious authorities hired by the church to hunt down heretics, arrest them, just like Galileo, and tell them that they have to change their story. They have to take back anything that is heresy, they have to take back. Yeah, Jihan.
What's the difference between Inquisition and Council of Trent?
Okay, so the Inquisition was the next thing. They sent the Inquisition, members of the Inquisition, out to hunt for Martin Luther. If they had caught him, they probably would have arrested him at least, tortured him probably, maybe killed him. But they didn't catch him because what? Who helped it?
Prince,
A German prince. Why did the German prince help it?
because they wanted to get out from church.
Why did the German prince, good you he, why did the German prince want to get away from church power?
Because they have to pay taxes.
Good you he. Yuhi's been studying. Ooh, look at that. Because the princes have to pay taxes to the church. And those northern princes don't want to. It's more money for the northern princes if we don't have to give all of this tax money to the church. So many princes were, for economic and political reasons, very happy to join the Reformation against the church. What time is it?
4.
Okay, 4 o'clock. All right. So the Inquisition didn't work. More and more people are joining the Reformation, leaving the church, rebelling against the Catholic Church. This is now a big emergency for the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church needs to call a special meeting. And that special meeting, where they discuss this emergency, is called? Thank you so much. All right. The Council of Trent. Trent is a city. The Catholic Church calls the Council of Trent. At the Council of Trent, what sort of things are they going to discuss? Common sense. Get it in your head.
Like is Inquisition the meeting or Council of Trent?
Inquisition is not a meeting. Inquisition is, think of it as a religious police force.
So Inquisition are the police and Council of Trent is the...
Just like we say the police, we say the Inquisition. The police is not a person, but policemen work for the police. The Inquisition is not a person, but people work for the Inquisition. And instead of looking for criminals, they're looking for heretics. And they'll arrest them in the same way at that point. So the Council of Trent. What is the church going to be discussing here? Susan, we just talked about this morning. So. Okay, half of Europe is leaving us. Northern Europe is rebelling against us. So we need to ask these questions. Is Luther right? Is the church corrupt? Oh. Another thing Luther said, when the Pope excommunicated Luther, what did Luther say about the Pope's authority? Remember, the Pope was corrupt too. So if the Pope is corrupt, will God care about him excommunicating me? If the Pope is corrupt, if the Pope is sinning left and right, and again, remember, you studied some of the popes. They had illegitimate children, they had massive parties, huge mansions, all sorts of things. They were definitely corrupt. So if you know that this corrupt man of God is sending you to hell, excommunicating you, what are you going to say in response? Excommunication doesn't matter, good way. It doesn't matter because this man is not really God's representative. And so what did Luther do? He challenged the Pope. He said the Pope is not the authority anymore. We don't need the Pope. The Pope is not the authority. Now, what's left? What are the two authorities, according to the Catholic Church, of Christianity? One is the church, and the other source of authority is? One is the church. The church includes popes, bishops, priests, and everything else.
Bible.
The Bible. Thank you. So Martin Luther says, we have the church, which up to this time there was only one in Europe, and we have the Bible. Those are the two authorities. Martin Luther says, church, no more the authority. So all that's left is with the Protestants. And Martin Luther, again a Christian humanist, says, we can all read and we can all have our own relationship to God through the Word of God, the Bible. So, individual. We don't need the Pope. We don't need his authority. We can read the Bible and we can understand God, have an individual relationship. We don't need the Pope between us and God. Take the Pope away. Now it's us, the Bible, and God. So at the Council of Trent, all of Europe is walking around saying, wow, everybody's saying that we don't have to listen to the Pope anymore. This is the guy that used to say excommunication, and everybody would stop doing what they were doing and say, you know, okay, whatever you say. So at the Council of Trent, this is what they announced. The Pope is the only authority. You do need him. And the church dogma is the only way to interpret the Bible. There is only one way to interpret the Bible, and it's the way the church says it should be interpreted. If you read the same passage that I read, and I'm the church, and you see it differently, you have a different interpretation, maybe that sentence is a symbol, maybe it's not literal. No, sorry, I'm the church, my interpretation is the only true one. Who will this make trouble for 150 years later? This rule right here. You cannot interpret it differently than the church says. Anybody in the audience out there? Somebody made a discovery that went against the church. I'm sorry, that went against what the church said about the universe. And the church said, take it back, because that's heresy. And this scientist said, but no, I'm a Christian. I understand the Bible. It just has to be read differently, not as a science book, but differently. We can interpret it differently. And they said, no, you cannot interpret it differently because of this, in the Council of Trent, 150 years earlier. And that person was? No, who was called before the Inquisition? Ji Hum. Who was called before the Inquisition and arrested? Galileo. And remember, he was 70 years old, he was put under house arrest, and the church kept him a prisoner in his own house for the last 10 years of his life. Because they would not let him say, we can interpret the Bible differently, since it's obvious that the sun does not go around the earth. That's why the Council of Trent's important. They also made the index of forbidden books. Index just means list, here. And so the index of forbidden books was a list of books that the church said cannot be read. What writer comes to mind during the Reformation who may have written something that the church would say, nobody can read that, let's put it on the list of forbidden books and take all the copies and lock them up? We're in the Renaissance now, not the Age of Enlightenment. During the Renaissance, who wrote 95 Theses? Luther. Do you think that the 95 Theses were on the index of forbidden books? You bet. Anything that went against church authority, Pope's authority, church interpretation, was put on a list of forbidden books and could not be read or owned by anybody. And the last thing that the church did, now remember, where did the Reformation succeed in Europe? Where did people follow Luther? What countries? England. Well, no, be careful. Was it England that followed Luther, or did they follow somebody else that split with the church?
King Henry.
King Henry VIII. Did he split with the church because of Martin Luther?
No.
No. Where did people follow Luther in Europe? Germany became Protestant? Some of it. A lot of France did. Holland. The Low Countries. Yeah. So, okay, so basically Northern Europe was Protestant. And so because they lost half of Europe, they lost Northern Europe, they started a new order of priests and missionaries called the, it's on your list, the Jesuits. And the Jesuits' jobs were to go around and educate and, hi, good night.
Mr. Burell, do you mind if I borrow these chargers from the video shop?
No, it's right over there. Plugged under the coffee. Now, which camera are you talking about, though?
This camera. I mean,
Okay,
the
I'm using it right now.
No, I mean the video charger.
Yeah, it's in the wall behind, under the coffee maker. Okay, so what was the Jesuits' job? The Jesuits' job was to go out and educate people against the Reformation and teach church. Oh, okay, by the way, dogma. Can you tell by just the context? Church dogma is the only way to interpret the Bible. What does dogma mean?
Strong belief.
Strong belief. Strong belief. Authority belief. Something that's believed because authorities say so. And so you don't disagree with that. That's dogma. What's an example of church dogma that got Galileo in trouble? What piece of church dogma got Galileo in trouble? That the earth is in the center of the universe. The church dogma said. They were dogmatic about the earth being the center of the universe. So dogma is, yeah, Jihan.
The Jesuits were on the Protestant side or the Catholic side?
Jesuits were Catholic. Again, this is all under the Council of Trent.
Oh.
Council of Trent is a church meeting, Catholic church meeting, saying we have an emergency. We have to fight back against the Reformation. So they made the Jesuits to go out and educate. They ended up going to countries that were discovered by explorers and became missionaries and started religious schools all around the world. The Jesuits did. They lost so many members in Europe that they started going to get new members in North America, South America, Asia, China, Korea. The Jesuits were all over the place. All right, the Jesuits. Most of your Christian schools around the world are Jesuit schools. Your Christian international schools, most of them are Jesuit. All right. Did we leave anything off of the list for the Reformation?
No.
So do you see how it all fits together? Now, how was the church in Europe weakened by the Reformation? How was Christianity weakened by the Reformation? Okay,
People stopped believing
they stopped believing in Christianity?
it. Never went to church.
Okay, so how did that weaken the church?
We lost more people.
Well, they didn't lose, the church lost people. Let's just say this.
They lost authority.
Yes. What's the word I'm looking for? Weakened. Now again, when you study this in history, it all seems really boring. But you have to picture every Christian in Europe at that day suddenly being told, one religious authority, Martin Luther, who was a priest, is saying the Pope is evil and wrong, and we should not follow him. And the Pope saying Martin Luther is evil and wrong. And so now we have religious authorities themselves who are contradicting each other. They both cannot be right. So every Christian in Europe had to choose. And because now we have authorities disagreeing, what does that do to authority? If the authorities can't agree, do we believe them as much? We're not as sure that they're right if they can't agree among themselves. So religious authority itself was weakened by the Reformation. Suddenly it's not so easy to be dogmatic, to say there's only one way of seeing things. All right, let's move on past the Reformation. Exploration, is that next? Spread of religions. What are the concepts on there? I'm not going to do Muhammad. I'm not going to do Constantine. They're both on the timeline review sheet. Emperor Theodosius, he was in the video that we watched. He's the guy that destroyed the pagan temples and used the bricks of the Greek and Roman pagan temples to build churches. He's the guy that said Greek and Roman religion, pagan religion, are now against the law.
Theodosius.
Theodosius, yeah. Constantine accepted Christianity and made it the official religion, but Theodosius is the one who attacked and destroyed. What happened, what happened to the gods of the Iliad? They didn't just disappear one day, they were destroyed by Theodosius, a Roman emperor. And so that's how that religion left the world. All of the temples were torn down, and people were told that they could no longer believe in that religion. Forget the, for those of you who are here and for those of you who watch this, forget the Library of Alexandria. It's a really interesting story, but it's not modern history. Okay. Huh?
For the Byzantine Empire, what do you have to know?
Remember your spread of religions map? The yellow Christianity, Byzantine, Eastern Orthodox. The blue Christian. Yeah, thank you. It's funny, I put those up there so I will always know they're there, and then I forget that I put them there. So the yellow Christianity, you remember? Is this on there? Is this on there? Look.
Yeah.
Okay, so the yellow Christianity, oh, I can do this. So the yellow Christianity, whoa, whoa. So the yellow Christianity, oh, the yellow Christianity is Eastern Orthodox, starting from the Byzantine Empire. The blue Christianity is the Roman Catholic Church. Whoa, weird. And the red Christianity is the Protestant. Okay, and the blue Spanish Empire, hello, look at Mexico and South America. Spanish Empire. Incas and Aztecs. Spain conquered those. That's how they became blue. Pizarro, Cortez, Spanish explorers and conquerors. That's how Christianity spread to the New World. Who converted the New World? The Jesuits. Byzantine Empire, responsible for the spread of Christianity, a different Christianity, Eastern Orthodox, into Russia, the Middle East, and Northern Africa. All right, let's move past the spread of religions then. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. Okay, come on, I can do this and listen to questions at the same time. Exploration. What about it? Let's tell the age of exploration as a story. Okay, why did it happen? What had been going on in Europe for who had been Europe's big enemy for a long time? Since what year? Since Muhammad? What year was that, Muhammad?
600.
And?
Huh?
600 and?
60.
Good guess. No, it's lower. 630. So Muhammad, 630. The Muslims went into we know this, I don't need to do this. The Muslims went into North Africa. The Muslims went into North Africa. They were in the Middle East. And so Europe over here was boxed in. It couldn't get to what? What did Europe want that they learned about in the Crusades? Spices. And where did the spices come from? Okay. So spices came from India. How did Europe learn about the spices in India? Nope. Yep. Where did Europe go? Come on now, think about it. Here's Europe, here's North Africa, and here is the Middle East. So Europe, and here's the Atlantic Ocean. So Europe is boxed in. It's in a corner, literally. And it's got Muslims on this side, and Muslims below it on the south, North Africa. So the only thing Europe knew was the Muslims. How could it know the rest of the world before sailing started? Before exploring started? How did it see these spices? Good, the Muslims. How? How did Europe see the Muslims? When did Europe see the Muslims? War. What war? This is in your timeline. Again, this is why that timeline is not busy work. If you think about the connections, the Crusades. Europe had been fighting in the Holy Land in the Crusades from, on your timeline we say 1,000, it's really 1,100, but it's not real important. As you age, you'll get the exact dates. It's okay right now. So from 1,100 to 1,300, for 200 years, Europe is, for the first time, traveling out of Europe, going to the Muslim Empire, which is very high, civilized, advanced at this time. They've got amazing science, amazing architecture, amazing literature, rich, great food, great silks and all sorts of stuff. Where are they getting this great food and these great silks? India and China, because Arabia is on the Indian Ocean, right? So the Arabs, the Muslims, can just sail right across the Arabian Sea, and they're in India. So they've got all this trade going on. So the Crusaders from Europe discover all this silk and spices, the spices especially, by fighting the Muslims. All right. So those are the causes. So that's what the explorers want. Why can't they just travel to India by land?
Because Muslims blocked them.
Because the Muslims block them. That's simple. And so what do they have to do? They have to start sailing. Let's get in our head. What country started the explorations? What country started? Portugal. Remember, here's Spain, and here's Portugal, and here's the Atlantic. So you got ocean out here, and here's Africa down here. So if this is all ocean, what country is closest to the ocean to start exploring? Portugal. What country's next closest? Spain. Doesn't it make sense that these are the two countries that started exploring? Okay, and Portugal is first, it's closest to the Atlantic. Who was the guy in Portugal who started the school for navigators? Henry the Navigator. Really, again, instead of thinking of it as facts to memorize piece by piece, if you think of it as a story and tell the story, because that's what your essay assignment's going to be. You got to tell the story. So Portugal, Henry the Navigator. Not Henry VIII, Henry the Navigator. Starts a school. Who are the explorers that go to his school and that he sends to start exploring? Because he's not an explorer himself. He starts a school. Who are the explorers? Who's the first one? Who's another? Okay, good. So we're doing Portuguese explorers. Da Gama is one. Who's another one? Cabral, but Cabral is not on your list, so forget Cabral, okay? We will just go with Da Gama. What is Da Gama most important for doing?
He went around the world.
That's
He found the good that goes to India. He went around. Oh, he went to the feet of the Africa. He knew the path to go to India directly.
Spain, Portugal, India.
Like he went under that.
Da Gama did what?
Oh, India. Like this.
Good Yuhi, good Yuhi. He went down around the tip of India, of Africa. This is Africa. And found that route to India. So he's the first person. Again, why didn't we know this before? A, we were isolated by the Muslims, and B, we thought the earth was flat. Europe thought the earth was flat. Remember, China had been doing this for 2,000 years. Okay, so, and this is called the, I can't remember, is it Cape Horn or Cape of Good Hope?
Cape of Good Hope.
Cape of Good Hope?